Okay, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over what all we'll be doing in the animation series, the intermediate animation series, and what exactly intermediate means, as well as what exactly we'll be covering. However, it's not exactly the first tutorial, it's more just an introduction. So as you can see, we have a little fellow here, and this fellow we're going to be animating throughout the entire tutorial. We have a couple animations defaulting here already, T-pose and waving. And what we'll be doing is we'll be importing animations onto this and going over how to build bone maps. We'll be importing Mixamo animations specifically, but we're also going to go over how I actually created the rig and how I imported it into Godot and how I set it up, as that can be a little bit of a stickler point for people. This is going to be intermediate, and what that means is that I won't be going over every single little detail like I did with the beginner series. I will be taking a little bit more broad strokes, assuming that people who are watching it know some of the basics of Godot, like renaming things, how to reposition things, things like that. So we'll be using that as a baseline for what people already know. Now, besides that, we'll be going ahead and going over how to get from Blender to Godot 4. We're going to go over naming, we're going to go over rigging. As you can see here, we have the full rig, and we use something called Game Rig Tool. And we're going to go over that as well. It's a free tool you can get off of Gumroad, but you can also pay the developers if you like, and it is a very good tool. I would highly suggest you pay the developers. So the way Game Rig Toolkit works is it has a control rig and a game rig. And so the control rig, I can go ahead and go in here and go into pose and move it around as I like, and we can export all of that to the game rig. I'll be going over how to set up all the naming conventions and get all that worked. We'll just go ahead and rip out the game rig out off of this mesh and then redo it in the tutorial. And then following that, we're going to go over how to export to GLTF file format and what exactly to export, specifically with rig, but also when we use blend shapes, as we'll be doing later, we need to go over how to export those blend shapes properly to Godot and get them recognized. Besides that, we're also going to go over how to import animations, how to save those animations to single files as well as libraries so that we can find them in here and we can import them to other characters. And for that, we're also going to go over how to do bone maps. Bone maps are a very powerful tool that lets you set up how animations should be remapped to different bipeds, or technically any skeleton, but that's a lot more work, and I don't think that that's an intermediate tutorial. So for now, we're just going to be going over how to do humanoids and how to set those up with the different bones and how to import animations using bone maps. Then following that, we're going to go over how to import animation trees. I don't actually have one here, we just have an animation player, but we're going to go over how to implement animation trees and get different animations blending, and specifically blending certain parts of the body with certain animations so that way we can have running in different directions while the upper body is looking in one direction. Following that, we're going to also go over how to do bone attachments. Bone attachments are how you connect objects directly to bones, like items on a belt or a firearm in a hand, things like that. So we'll go over how to do that as well. And then we're going to take all of that and we're going to put it together into a very simple third-person controller and movement system, and we're just going to save all that out, and that is going to be free for anyone. Whenever the tutorial ends is when we'll have the fully functional one working, but the GitHub repository will be in the link, and we'll be doing this in Godot script and C# script, though we're not going to separate those two until we actually get to the character controller, because there won't actually be any programming. This will all be animations and setting up in editor, so that'll make everything a lot easier as far as that goes. But yeah, I'm excited to show off the character, show off how to do blend shapes, show off all these different features. Thank you all, and we'll start next week with the first tutorial on importing and exporting and naming conventions.